Welcome to a new wave of entrepreneurship by Venture for Canada. Venture for Canada is a national charity on a mission to foster the entrepreneurial skills and mindsets of young Canadians. Our vision is a Canada where young people can equitably realize their entrepreneurial potential to help build one of the most prosperous entrepreneurial ecosystems in the world.
Hello, my name is Scott Sturt, and I am the host of a new wave of entrepreneurship. And I am really excited to have Martin Basiri on the podcast today. Martin is the founder and CEO of Passage. And before that, he was the CEO and founder of ApplyBoard, which is one of Canada's most successful technology companies. And in this episode, Martin is going to be speaking about the hard truth about entrepreneurship. And Martin is one of the most gritty entrepreneurs that I've met in a while. And I'm really excited to dive deeper into this topic. Martin, to kick things off, can you describe a little bit about your upbringing in Iran and how that taught you about some of the hard truth about life in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm 35. I grew up in Iran and I left Iran to come to Canada at the age of 22. So I got my bachelor degree in Iran. Um, we were like middle class, lower middle class family. My both of my parents were educators. They were hustling day and night to provide for us. And I think the first lesson when I grew up was I um, learned that my parents really have to work hard. My mom was working both shifts as a school principal, and my dad was electrical engineer. We were fixing everything at home, so it means if the radio doesn't work or refrigerator or something doesn't work, we were doing it. Everyone was doing side hustle. My dad's side hustle was to repair other people like radios and those things. It was his hobby, but also like the way that it was doing. Like we were in this like big apartments, and all the kids were playing to each other. So I was always telling other kids, they were like, "Hey, do you guys have like a radio, TV, anything that doesn't work? Let me know." And I would go to their home, pick it up, bring it home. Dad like fixed it. So I was just watching, and he was explaining. He was kindly explaining everything to me. And my brothers were younger than me. Like they were 5 years younger than me, and my sister was older. And they were teaching us about this TV. This is transistor. This is this. So before I learned um, how to read and write, I knew like what is battery, what is resistor, what is like. I think by age of 10, I sold my first circuit that I designed with transistors to measure the conductivity of metals. I was 10 years old. I brought it to the school and someone just bought it. I'm not sure like how much he bought it, but I sold it because everyone was like, "Wow, look at this does this." Um, so I grew up that one. We had pretty hard life. Like we lost a brother. Like I had an older brother that we lost. That really like impacted the family in a negative way. Like especially parents. It was pretty hard life. Um, Generally speaking, living in Iran is very very hard. When I remember it, but hard is good. It made us stronger. It made us like appreciate a country like Canada right now way more. I think one time we were talking about like uh, we had like a lot of time that electricity was going, right? We didn't have electricity. We are out of power, and we had to like plan it because you could have been in a in a party and electricity go, or it could be the night before your exam and you are out of electricity, so you had to be prepared always for that. Something like here we never think about it, right? We never think about it like, oh, tomorrow I have an exam, I'm gonna read before like the night before the exam. No, 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 no. Over there you're like, I might not have the electricity that day, right? It got better when I grew up, definitely. Um, but I grew up with that one, and it was fun. Like we were happy. We were like always having fun. I was one of those builders, nerd kids. I was building things at the age of 13. I started this computer shop that I was like burning CDs and I'm fixing my friends' computers for like a little bit money here and there. And at 14, my uncle came from Canada, and he was like, he see how much time I'm spending on the computer, and I was like, talking to everyone. Look at my business. I'm burning games for other people. Or I'm burning music video CDs for them. And he came and I remember he opened the Excel file in front of me. I was 13 or 14, and he wrote this like a little function um, on basics, QBasic, and basically just like populate all the cells from 1 to 10,000 with like a formula. Like every cell is just like added another 10 or something. And I found it like, wow, what did you do? And he said, this is called programming. You can program the computer. This is what you do with the computer, not burning CDs, not playing games. This is what you should do. And from that day, I just switched to programming. Since I really loved electrical engineering and circuit design, because that's what I learned from my dad, now I started programming chips. Like I started with like learning assembly and then C, and basically like you program the what you want your circuit to do, and then you put it like you design your circuit, you compile all the program, all the codes that you write, with the basically you put it to your chip, and then the circuit does what it does. And I started like inventing these things, many things. I was like selling some of them in high school, and at 18 I became we had this very very hard exam in Iran called national entrance exam. To give you a sense, my year 430,000 people wrote the exam to enter engineering and science school. This is excluding medical field, because that has a separate exam. And technically, if you were not top 1%, or technically 0.5%, you were screwed. You couldn't go to top schools anymore. And why is that so much matter that you get to the top school? Because if you don't go to top school, then your life is ruined. Like, it's not like here that everyone have a job. Even if you do like a normal job, you can pay rent and have a car. No, like over there, even like engineers are struggling sometimes, right? Look at the GDP per capita is $2,000. You know, like it's $2,000, but this iPhone is the same price. Is in fact even higher. So this is 1 year of someone's salary, right? Basically, what happened then? One of the way that you could get to the school without going through this like hard exam that people prepare 5-6 years um, before writing it at the age of 18 was like, if you invent something, you you can go to this exam. But for that, you go to this Kharazmi festival, which is 27,000 people competed for it for 13 people. And somehow I didn't look at the stat when I started uh, going after it. So first year I've done it, I failed. Second year, I failed. Third year of the high school, I failed. Finally, I had to go through the exam. I passed the exam, like I became the top 1%, and also I won the Kharazm Festival. One of my invention that I've did it. I've made something for people who don't have sights, like blind people, students. It was in education that won, and my entrepreneurial life started after I entered the university. Now I went to one of the best universities because of that invention. They gave me a lab that now I have my own lab. They gave me equipment. I could code day and night in the university, and no one was like telling me what to do. Like, that was the best part of my life. That I had a full freedom of building whatever I want to build, right? And so I started having some little fame here and there. First, different departments were coming to me and they were like, hey, like my lab required this, can you build it? So one of the things in Iran, everything's sanctioned, so it's a sanctioned country. What does it mean? It means if you need to buy anything, everything's triple the price. It's so expensive. But if you want to buy something like a lab equipment or something, don't think about it. You got to build it yourself, right? So all these labs that universities outside of Iran, they have all this equipment in their lab. Over there, either we don't have it or it's 40-year old before all the sanctions comes, or you need to build it. So as a result, I was the custom builder in the university, and all the professors were coming to me, said, hey, I have this much budget, would you make me something? And I was like, damn, yeah. And so in the university I'm studying, I'm building things and I'm selling it, I'm making money. And they made it even sweeter for me. They said, we also pay for all the materials, so whatever you sell the products for, it's all your profit. And I was like, this is like hallelujah, like how is that possible? So I started doing that. Middle of my school, year two, I won this science competition, and as a result, they sent me to Sierra Leone for my internship to Sierra Leone. And at the time, it was 2008, a year and a half after the civil war finished. The country was second poorest country in the world. And wow, I stayed there for one summer and it changed my life. I've seen a true poverty, and it opened my eye, because in Iran, people think Iran is the worst place on the planet Earth. But when you go to Sierra Leone, you understand how happy and lucky we are in Iran compared to a country like Sierra Leone, where you may have 2 hours of electricity a week, right? Versus 2 hours of outage a week or a day, right? You don't have running water. It's something that in my life in Iran, I never had any problem. We always had piped water, right? In the home, we always have pipe. You turn on the faucet and you have the water. But in Sierra Leone, they didn't have that. You have to go with a bucket to the street, down the block. You pour water in it and you bring it. It's freezing cold, and you turn on the candle in the shower and you take shower. That's like how life it was in 2008. I don't know how it is today. I don't think it's much better because their GDP is not growing that much. So I don't think situation is much better. I went back to Iran, finished my internship, went back to Iran, finished my bachelor degree. I invented now a lot of things. I went to like international competition of inventors. I'm making money. Not that much of money, but like selling my inventions. And I got a couple of patents. And as a result of my work, um, I went to University of Waterloo. They gave me full scholarship, $52,400 scholarship to go to University of Waterloo to study my master's degree in engineering, and that was a new chapter of my life.
That is such an amazing story. And I can see how at so many different points in your life, you learned some of these different entrepreneurial lessons from as a child, finding things that are broken down and taking them to your dad, to your later invention and your engineering capabilities. Martin, when we spoke a couple months ago, you talked about the hard truth of entrepreneurship and how a lot of the time people kind of sugarcoat or they say they hide the reality of what entrepreneurship is actually like. What do you think are the hard truths about entrepreneurship?
So, first of all, full disclaimer: uh, I'm I'm just talking about from my own experience, and other entrepreneurs might have a different time, easier or harder time. Um, so I just wanted like to put out there that this is my own experience. For me, I think the hardest part of entrepreneurship is how much work you need to put into it to get the result that you think. For me, I actually measured it over time. It's always double the amount of time with the hard work you need to put in to get the same result. So if I think I can do this project in 3 months, most likely it's 6 months. And I try to measure myself because I'm always very optimistic person. So I was like, okay, I know I'm wrong. Let's measure it. Let's see how wrong I am. Entrepreneurship, if you want to build, especially if you want to build $1 billion company, like a multi-billion-dollar company, or you want to build something that like lasts generations and solve one of the biggest human problems, is damn hard. You like, I think on average, the last 9 years of ApplyBoard and Passage, I put easily, if you do average, of course, at the first was the highest, and then it came down and then went up again. Maybe 90, like if I want to say average, including all the vacations, everything, 90 hours a week, maybe 100. Um, I remember all the weeks that I was putting 120 hours every single week, back to back. Now is like closer to like 80 to 90. Um, it's that amount of work when you do, it's hard. It's hard on, like, you sacrifice a lot. You don't go to birthday parties. Sometimes you miss weddings. You miss meeting your friends sometimes, right? But it's fun because you see your own progress. I think if you don't see progress in your life, even if you work 20 hours, you burn out because you don't see the result. And if even you work 100 hours a week, if you see the progress, you actually become happy because you're like, oh, you get addicted to it because you want to win. You want to continue get better and better. For me, another part of entrepreneurship that was very hard was um, two factors. One was my English. I had to learn English when I came to Canada, and I started um, ApplyBoard with my brothers. We co-founded the company together just a couple of years after uh, I came. So learning English was pretty hard, and I'm not very good with languages. Languages, to some people come very natural. For me, it's a little harder. So basically, that was the second thing. Then maybe the third hardship that I really face, that I don't think like most of the people who listens to this they're gonna have, is my nationality. Um, Born in Iran and having Iranian passport, it took me almost a decade to have to secure my other residency, and it means basically at the peak of like building the company, traveling, you have to always like something that you can just like jump on a plane as a Canadian or American, go to Europe or something. You can't do it as an Iranian. You go through weeks of visa and processes. Sometimes even opening a bank account for your business is hard because they look at your. It's very very hard. Uh, but again, it just like made me appreciate what I have right now even more, because like if I could do it when everything was hard, right now things are easier, so I should be able to do it even bigger. Um, I think that's the other thing that normally comes hard. And besides it, like all the like fundraising, making sure your employees are happy, making sure you're always at the right place, making sure you're going toward the right thing. And one of the biggest or the hardest thing that you constantly have to like push yourself is, there are a lot of time you don't know what you should do. You're stuck. And the only way you can get out of it is to do something, because action create information. So you need to do something, and maybe what you do is completely useless, but you need to do it so to get to the next clue. So then based on that, you make the right action. And identifying that time and be able to decouple it and say, this is a bad time, that's why I have to do it, is very very hard.
To the point you mentioned earlier about the really long work weeks for a long period of time, I find that there's often a lot of debate amongst entrepreneurs. You certainly have, I would say, the Elon Musk really intense, go work 120 hours, 80, 90 hours a week. And there's lots of entrepreneurs I know like that. Then I'd say conversely, there's like the Tim Ferriss like 4-hour work week crew of people who are like, okay, how can you build as big of a business and spend like 5 or 10 hours a week and still build a really big business, but be super hands off. My question to you, Martin, is do you think it's possible to build a really large business and follow that like Tim Ferriss 4 hour work week and actually not put that much time into the business?
If kudos to them if they know how to do it. For me, I'm putting hours, like harsh hours, from when I'm 14 years old, when I started coding and get to these things. Then my entire high school, my entire bachelor degree, maybe while I was in Canada for my master's degree, that was my vacation time in life because I wasn't running a business or doing much things differently. But after that as well, I just like started like putting a lot of hours. Um, I don't know how they want to do it. For me, I realized that that's the only way, and I tell you why. There's a formula I have for it. So let's say two people start at the same place. Okay, when you do work, like let's say they're all same IQ, EQ, same. They're starting from the same place. When you do work and the right work, you basically learn. So your next day work, it become more efficient. So if the first person put 8 hours and second person put 16 hours, the second day, the person who put 16 hours is a little further and they work even the first 8 hours even smarter than the first person. So the way that I formulate it is like, so if two people start at the same time and one of them works double the other person, in the first year, that person is 2 times more successful. In the second year, 4 times more successful. In the third year, 8 times more successful. So it's 2 to the power of n. And I believe it because, and then basically, if you do that for 10 years, it becomes 2 to the power of 10, which is 1024, 1,000 times more successful. And I think it's because of compound on knowledge. A lot of things in entrepreneurship is you need to be able to make very fast decisions, and the way you develop that is by making a lot of mistakes. So if you can work longer hours and you work harder, you're making more of those mistakes and more of those decisions during, for example, 1 year versus 2 years. And so as a result, you're getting better faster and faster and faster, so your company can do better because either you outgrown the company growth or the company outgrown your growth, right? And your company gonna suffer if you don't outgrow the company growth, right? um, so I found it this way. If I heard about 4 hour work week, I never dig into it deep because I have a winning formula for me. So my formula is to go hard on it. And when I say like 14 to 16 hours a week, a day, I'm not saying all of that you sit down and just like answering emails. What I figured out for me is very fun when my work is dynamic. I love meeting people, so I do a lot of like, I don't know, connection, relationship building. Um, I work like for example in Passage right now. We work every day from office, so it's very fun to be with people in the meeting room, have fun. I don't know, throw ball at each other while like in a meeting. Like I have this volleyball that we just kick. Like we play ping pong, play chess while like talking the issue. So it's dynamic. I also uh, I normally spend about 20 to 30% of my time learning, and that's very fun, like reading, listenings, or for example developing new skills. Like for example, I'm redeveloping like my math skills right now. Like try to put hard things to just like keep my brain working. Like developing more cells and just basically just like keeping engaged. This is my formula. My formula is working. So if someone can do it with 4 hours, it probably I recommend that formula if it's proven right. Everyone who very successful I know in my life, they were hard workers. I never, at least the people I've seen around me, never seen someone created a giant multi-billion dollar company with 4 hour work per week. Um, have you seen someone?
Very few. There's one person I interviewed on the podcast in the very beginning, and his name is Marcus Friend, and he's the founder of Plenty of Fish, and he's like a multi-billionaire. He owned 100% of Plenty of Fish, never raised any money. I think he sold it for around $700 million, and then he's
Wow.
invested in all of these different things. And I think he said he built Plenty of Fish up to, at one point, it had $20 million in annual revenue. This was in the early stage. There were no employees, and he said he spent 3 hours a week on the business, or 2 hours a day on the business in this interview. I've interviewed around like 80 different people. So what I would say, Martin, is most people in my experience of interviewing and getting to know a lot of entrepreneurs, like hundreds and at least 80 in terms of this podcast, most entrepreneurs who are successful, I would say, work really hard. There is a small minority that sometimes can have immense, huge success, and for whatever reason, they don't. I guess they don't work that much in conventional hours. But I think a lot of it goes back to what you're saying: is what is work? So I would be like, okay, so you spend 2 hours a day working, but then like, what do you do for the rest of the time? And then he'd be like, oh, I read scientific papers and I like do all this research and like learning. So I think for him, in some ways, like he would view work as like the 2 hours would be like responding to emails. But probably in reality, like he works maybe, I don't know, 70, 80 hours a week in the sense of like, but he would maybe
Being
spend way more
productive.
time learning, yeah, being productive,
Yeah.
which I think he probably doesn't even view as work. He just views as fun.
Yeah. I wonder if such a person with that much of capability um, put longer hours. Let's say, assuming that is only 10 hour a week. Let's assume that is the work, right? If this person put 40 or 80, probably can create $1 trillion company, right? Because at the end of the story, we are all competing with ourselves, right? We have certain amount of like where we are started, our network, like who are in our network, how much money we have, education, IQ, EQ, all of that, right? So at the end of the story, this is a game of being the best version of ourselves, right? So if someone's very, very, very capable, then probably they can even create a bigger thing. For me, it's also really matter like what are you looking in your life, right? For me, one of the things I want to see, can I see the best version of myself? You know, I want to see the best version of myself. It's not, my competition is the future me. I want to see if I can reach that potential. It's a challenge for me. Can I do it? And like we humans, we have our one thing that is no one else is our time. It's like ours is my time, is your time, your life. You can choose to do it what whatever you want, as long as you don't bother other people. So I think that's also really different, like what is, because you don't only have a vision, at least for me it's like that. The vision for the company is part of the vision you have for yourself, right? Where you want to be, because otherwise how can you convince yourself to work on something for 10 years of your life every single day? So it's part of your life vision, and when it's aligned you feel very happy and you don't feel overwork or something. People always like say, they ask me, well, do you regret working so much? I say no, the only thing I regret is not taking enough risk. I should have taken even more risk in my life.
Have you read the Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson?
No, but I listened to Walter podcast with Lex. That was a cool one.
It's an
That
interesting book. I think you would potentially like it, but it's funny. So a lot of the things you're saying remind me a little bit of some of the things Elon Musk says in that book, because Walter Isaacson had a huge amount of access. He basically followed Elon Musk for like 2 years and interviewed all of his friends and family. So it's a quite exhaustive biography. but there's parts where it just talks about Elon Musk and his like. I think a lot of people they'll say, "Oh well, he has the most valuable company in the world, or not valuable company in the world. He's the richest man in the world. He owns Tesla. He has all these things. Why take the risk of like buying Twitter, right? Like that was a huge risk." And I think the thing that one of my takeaways in that is that for Elon Musk, like whenever he's feeling comfortable or like peaceful in life, he's like time to change it up. So he was like richest man in the world. It was actually a time of like more stability in his life. And he's like, nah, time to like go buy Twitter and cause all this like drama. And it's interesting. I think a lot of the most resilient entrepreneurs are people who are pretty like attracted to like chaos in some ways. Like they seek it out. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, like 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 kudos to him. Yeah, definitely that's the way. It's about challenge, right? You sometimes challenge makes you better, and you seeking that challenge. You're like, send me the challenge. Like I like challenge. It's like solving a puzzle. One thing I don't like about the how everyone about entrepreneurs they always I know the evaluations of the companies and the net worth and those things are just like a kind of a way to show the success, but having $200 billion or $200 million even, this is not the money that impact your quality of life at all, right? It actually creates a lot of responsibility and challenges for you, right? Because if you have $50 million, you just park it in S&P 500 and bonds, and then you can retire for the rest of your life. But if you have $5 billion, most likely it's equity of a couple of private companies. They have employees, they have lives, so you're responsible for the well-being of those employees and everyone. So it's not as easy. So sometimes like I don't like it that they just compare your success and they think you are chasing money. Oh, like you've get to this point. What are you like? Oh, why more risk? Why no one needs that much money? Like the answer is if the person was seeking money, they would have never ever get to where they are today. This is not a money game for them. Money is extremely good tool. You can hire smart people with it. You can buy tools to build your vision. You can go places that otherwise you can't go to do things that you can't do. So money is extremely a good tool, but after depends on the people 10 20 $100 million, technically it doesn't impact the quality of your personal life anymore. So what you chase is not no longer money, at least in the case of I think major entrepreneurs in our history. Like look at Jeff Bezos as well. Look at like all the people that they changed every of our lives um, day to day. They weren't chasing money, they were chasing challenges and see if they can solve that problem. Or like, do you think you can solve it? Yes, I think I can solve it, so I'll go for it. And that's why they swing for the fence. And many of them, we hear about it. And guess what? For every one of the Elon Musk, there has been hundreds of people who they didn't make it, and that's why we don't know them. But they went for what they believe they can do, just didn't work for them.
On the topic of money, one of the points in that book that I found interesting is it talks with one of the things that gets on Elon Musk's nerves more than anything is when people accuse him of being greedy, that he's just doing all of this just to become really rich. And it was
Yeah.
interesting when he first became rich, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, he like bought mansions and like sports cars and all these things. But then he kind of has reached a point where he's like, okay, the money is not really like he sold all of his houses. Like has like almost no personal possessions. So he's the richest man in the world. He owns like zero personal stuff. And it's to your point. I think that a lot of these people, at a certain, it's about the impact. A little bit about potentially ego and other things, but it's not really about the money. I mean, for some it is. I think in the sense that like they want a $500 million yacht, but I think a lot of other entrepreneurs really are not motivated predominantly on the money side. But one thing, just to go back a little bit to like
Uh, can I
you
just add something? I think a little bit money really help entrepreneurs because it brings you from the safety zone. Like, for example, if you know that you have money, that you, for example, you're not gonna be homeless if
Yeah.
your company fail. uh, I think that really, really help for you to think bigger and be able to risk more. So I call it like living money, right? The living money, the essential living money, if you have it saved, like for example, if you have your home mortgage paid off, or if you have some money that if this thing doesn't work, you have enough money for the next couple of years, just for you and your, maybe you have you're married or you have children and stuff. Having that enough in savings really, really, really help, because you're not worried about day to day. You're not worried about this decision gonna put me on a street. You're like, let's go, let's go.
I remember many years ago, we had John Ruffalo speak to some of the Venture for Canada participants, and he talked about the importance in like raising venture capital, entrepreneurs in Series B or Series C rounds selling some secondary shares,
Yeah.
because when they can cash out a little bit at that stage, particularly if it's their first time, then they can say, "Hey, I'm really going to swing for the fences," because they have the money that they've cashed out a little bit. And if the entire business goes bankrupt, they're still, they still have a safety net. And yeah, I thought it was an interesting point. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with him. I believe like getting from the entrepreneur point of view, getting to the place that whatever happened to my company, um, I'm gonna be safe in terms of like, hey, I'm not gonna like have problem of paying my bills and stuff. It really build a safety zone for you, so you're like, let's go for bigger.
Shifting back to something we talked about earlier, Martin, and the working very intense weeks. Even people I know who do work really intense weeks, they run up to a limit. And on the theme of Elon Musk, I think even he runs up to a limit sometimes, or he talks about that in that Walter Isaacson biography. When do you know that you're reached a limit where you're pushing yourself too hard?
Yeah. So I tested a lot of different things. Like for example, one of the things that naturally in any when you are calculating, it comes to um like it comes to sleep. That's the first thing you try to cut. You're like, I'm pretty sure I can live with 5 hours of sleep. I learned my way that mine is about 7.5. Like between 6.5 to 7.5, I'm good. If I sleep more, sometimes I'm like I don't feel good. If I sleep less, I'm not as productive. So I learned not to sacrifice from that. Exercise, like 1 hour of exercise workout for me, it gives me a lot of energy. So I see that as one of the best way to start my day, because the rest of the day I'm very high energy, and the days that I don't work out, my afternoon is not as productive. My evenings always extremely productive. I'm very, very creative in the evenings. Like after 5 o'clock, like maybe 6 o'clock to like 10, 11, I'm extremely productive. I have clarity of thought. I'm very, very productive in that hours. Um, so mm, the one other thing that I learned is you do all these things like about entrepreneurship and stuff. One of them is you do it for gaining freedom. So I try like I work, work, work. So I don't care about like the way that people frame it. Oh, it's Monday, Sunday, or something. When like I feel work, and when I see I really need a break now, I try to get a break, and then either depends on what's the mood, right? It could be break, could be watching a movie or going to a party or going on a trip or something. I'm doing it naturally. I don't necessarily have like a systematic way for it.
Yeah.
My
You know
body
it when
tell
you see
me,
it.
yeah, my body tell me like you are not the best of yourself.
Yeah.
Always I'm comparing. Am I the best of myself? Can I be better? And sometimes I see like this week you weren't on top of the work. Like what's happening?
That's a good hard truth about entrepreneurship as well. And speaking about another hard truth about entrepreneurship, you've spoken a little bit about the importance of having a LeBron James mindset. What is a LeBron James mindset and why is it important for entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So one of the thing that always like in my company I tell my team is um like look at basketball. You can either play at your high school basketball, or you're playing for your town, or you're playing for your state, or you're playing for college, or you're playing for NBA, or you are the champion, the championship team, right? When you're building a startup and when you're an entrepreneur, the whole game is to be the champion, right? So basically, the champion doesn't compare themselves with what is the norm, because the norm doesn't get you to the championship. Like LeBron James or Michael Phelps, they're competing with themselves, right? They don't look at it. Oh, on average, a basketballist should play 4 hours a day, so I'm gonna do 4 hours a day. No, the 4 hours a day doesn't get them to being able to do what they do, right? So I always tell like my team right now, we are running Passage is a small team, so I always tell them we are a professional basketball team. We have to work harder than everyone else because we are behind everyone else. So we gotta like prove to the world that we can do that, and we do that by extremely good teamwork and everything. So we compare ourselves that we want we act as if we are the stars of an NBA championship team, because I know you're not there yet, but if you act like one, if you're the way that you speak, the way that you act, the way that you treat your customers, if everything you acted as a best in class of that regard, you can always like achieve that, right? Um, and by the way, we were talking about hours and stuff. Um, like I think Michael Phelps is talking about. I think for 10 years he didn't day a single day off, including Christmas and his birthdays and everything. He worked out every single day, and it pays off for him, right? He broke his record every single time. And also one other thing that I see in these like extremely successful entrepreneurs, that they're always trying to break their own limit. My last deal I've done was, I don't know, $10 million. Can I do a $20 million? The last technology I built brought in 1 million consumer to my app. Can I do it 5 million this time? Last raise I have done it on a $50 million. Can I raise $200 million right now? It's like always is they're chasing themselves for a better success. They're pushing themselves. It's like, yes, I can do it.
The importance of competing against yourself, of trying to be 1% better every week or every month, I think is something that
Yeah,
is a hard truth about entrepreneurship,
yeah.
and that it is this constantly never ending journey because perfection is impossible. Even if you're like an 80-year-old, titan of industry, you can always get better.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is very, very important for entrepreneurs is the passion for what they do, because the passion creates like power. Is your It's like at the end of the story, if your boat need power, right? That they need fuel, and you're passionate about what you do, really like have an impact on that fuel. Um, for me, that passion comes from my mission and the passion for building something. And our mission is to make education and opportunities accessible for students all around the world, for all the immigrants. So the people like me, or that they necessarily not born in the best place in the world, we talk about it. They can have also access to best quality education and change their lives. And knowing why you do what you do, and having a personal mission and personal vision and tied it to the company and vice versa, really, really push you forward. Because in the hardest days, in the hardest nights, in the hardest time of economy or market, or bad thing happen with customers, or your tech fail or something comes, always tell your brain, this is it, time to quit, time to quit, time to quit. and the other part of your heart says, no freaking way. If you think I gonna quit and I gonna say goodbye to my dream, try again. Challenge me. A new challenge? Good. I'll fix it. I have an opportunity now to fix it and become even stronger than what I was supposed to be. Oh, I was supposed to be this good? Because of that was my challenge. Now my challenge got bigger. When I solve this, I become even 10 times better. I'm gonna be even better entrepreneur after I solve this. Oh, fundraising got hard? No problem. I bootstrap my company. I do it with like a less money. I become more efficient. Now what? I also learn how to do this with a better thing, right? For me, that passion comes really from building something and gather smarter people than me and like getting together to solve a problem. And also for what we do at Passage and also an ApplyBoard of like helping people. Like when I see someone using what we built and their life get fundamentally better, it's just so is it's so rewarding that like you see someone like come to you and say, oh, you're Martin, because I always wear like either Passage or Apply or t-shirt, say yes on the street, and they're like, you brought me to Canada and you have no idea how much my life changed because of that. I used your app, like I mean your website, I came to Canada. Now I finished my studies at, for example, University of Windsor. I work at this, I make this much money, I send money back home. My brothers are going to university because of that money now. And you're like, wow, is what I built could change one person's life to this much? I'm all for it, Bring me challenges. Like I solve them one by one. And it's so important. And I think entrepreneurs that like they chase, at least for me, it's like that. I chase this because like at the end of the story, it's like you're like, go for it, don't scare, whatever happened, let it happen. Outcome of it, you'll be better. And at the end of the story, doing this to build something because you are addicted in building good things and helping other people, and you're passionate about what you're doing, it's fun. you know when we are thinking backward to our life, you always like remember all the cool things that you built.
Speaking of the darker moments, the moments that are very tempting to give up, can you describe to like the listeners, did you ever have a moment in your entrepreneurial journey where you were like, screw this, I'm done? I am it, think of like your lowest kind of point in your entrepreneurial kind of journey. What helped you get through that point?
I never give up. No, I didn't have. I have a lot of other people, or in my mind there was like, this is it, this time is different, and I was like, no freaking way, I'll show you. It's like we are um so let me tell you a Farsi thing. It's saying we are the gardener of this world. It doesn't matter you like it or not, you are always planting, right? It's like you are a painter and your life is a canvas, and you have the pen, no one else. You sometimes people throw paint at it, sometimes a portion of it get burned. These are all those unexpected things that you are saying. At the end of the story, the pen is your hand. You can try to give up and just like make everything black, or you try to, with those paints and fires or whatever is on your canvas, try to build the most beautiful thing that you can build, right? And that's, I think, my life. And not only for the entrepreneurship time, for everything else. It's like, if something happened, okay, this is it, like I'm not gonna give up, like build the this is my new ground level, right? We have to keep going, right? Because I think I would be miserable if I give up. You know, if I give up, I'm not gonna forgive myself. So as a result, I'm not gonna give up. Hardship happened like any other people. I also had very, very dark times. I also had bad times that you can't even explain to other people how hard it was, because you're not even comfortable talking about it, because the scars are still in your heart. It's so sad that, you know sometimes to even closest people in your life, you're not even comfortable yet to open up and talk about them, right? But when it comes to yourself, you can't give up. You're just gonna keep going. It's your life. you know if this is this is what actually one of the things that I really love about entrepreneurship, because when you look at your 10 year ago and you say, okay, 10 years I've done startup, I would have never guessed the abilities of handling hardship that I have right now, that I could have if I didn't go through this hard, challenging road, you know?
There's a great book that I read 7 or 8 years ago called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben
Yeah.
and Horowitz. And it's about entrepreneurship. And I think one of the things he just talks about is just how tough it is. And one of my reflections from this interview is just that what we were talking about in the pre-show, Martin, that happiness equals reality minus expectations.
Yeah.
It's really important for aspiring entrepreneurs to understand that choosing to create, choosing to be an entrepreneur, choosing to bring things into the world inherently brings with it risk and suffering, but also immense potential like rewards. But it's not easy. It's not, there are hard realities about entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Nothing good comes easy. Maybe the only thing comes easy is like when you're bored, if you're born in a perfect situation, in a good country, in a wealthy family, like that's the only thing comes easy. Even that has its own challenges. Like for example, till 25, when I dealt with all this immigration coming here, I was always like thinking, oh, I wish I was born in US. Why should I, as an Iranian, go through this much of hardship just to be able to establish my life here, so I can be like everyone else? I can just start a company, right? And now that I think back, I don't want to be born in US, because I don't think I would have experienced that hardship that I experience now. And there is a chance that I would have not be where I am right now. Um, because if life was easier to me, maybe I didn't want what I want right now this bad. Maybe I would have give up earlier. You know, and again, like whatever I'm telling you, uh, we are talking about as of January 2024. My mind might shift as isn't it one thing that is like I found it very crazy is like people normally come to you say like, oh, you said this, but 2 years ago you said this, and it's completely shift, and they're actually demonizing it. I'm like, if I don't shift, if my mindset, if my opinions doesn't change, that's demonized. A good human being is something that you keep learning, and that's why you're changing, right? So like it's not at all, it's demonized, right? Maybe 5 years from now I tell you, you should not work as hard, right?
Yeah.
Like at this time I think this way, and I'm happy with it. Maybe down the road it's change, we'll see. I would be more than happy to talk about it at that time without like holding it back.
I once read something that the difference between a smart person and an unintelligent person are two different things. One is the ability to say, I don't know. And then two is the ability to say, my mind changed. And for whatever reason, we often, as society, I think, like stigmatize saying, I don't know and I changed my mind. When to your point, to me, it is actually one of the greatest signs of intelligence.
Yeah, you gotta change, right? Like,
Yeah.
hard lesson especially teach you a lot. You change as a human, you become more empathic or sympathetic to other people. Like it's the greatest gift. A startup makes you strong. That's one of the best rewarding part about a startup. it makes you very a strong human being, because you go through so much of toughness, you go through so much of a struggle, and every time you build it, you're building a muscle. It's a mental muscle, right? um, it's like going to gym. Unless you don't go to gym, your muscles doesn't build. So same thing on here, right? If you don't go through mental challenges, if you don't go through hard times, how are you expected to build these muscles, right? Like build the muscle of being able to like control your like emotions, being able to make a decision in a very hard situation, being a strategic, being able to be agile, to change a strategy, and those things.
I agree. It's the same advice like a personal trainer would give. If you want to build more muscles, you have to push your muscles to the limit. The same, I think, goes in terms of mental like fitness. With the recognition of what we were saying earlier, is that there is a line where, similar to if you're in the gym, sometimes you need to take like a break.
Yeah.
But so just to kind of wrap things up, Martin, because I know we're around out of time. This has been such an interesting interview. I really appreciate your candor. I also appreciate just the unvarnished way you describe entrepreneurship and the hard truths that do exist that many entrepreneurs face. I think it's become really sexy or trendy to become an entrepreneur. And sometimes that masks the deeply challenging nature of the work and the sacrifices that are involved with it. Martin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of A New Wave of Entrepreneurship. Stay connected with us via our socials and through our email list. And be sure to subscribe to us in your favorite podcast app so you don't miss our next episode. Have feedback on today's episode? Let us know directly in the app. Thanks again for listening and for joining the new wave of entrepreneurs. Till next time.